Right. We did create all the required accounts that we would need later in the setup. So let's have a look again. But now we look at a chart of accounts that has been populated further. So we see many more accounts appearing here. As we mentioned before, there were several accounts required for the setup. One of them was the VAT account. There was one GRM receivable account, a returns variance account, a retained profit account. Let us have a look where we apply now these default setup accounts. To do that, I go to Extra, Setup, Defaults. Here you will find under the financial section several of them. For example, the VAT. As you can see, discounts provided, retained profit. And in the inventory tab, we will find the returns variance account and we'll find the GRM receivable account. Let us go back again to the chart of accounts and explain a little bit more. So in the chart of accounts, again, we break it down. We go one by one. In the company assets, what would you normally find there? You would find bank accounts, cash accounts, for example, accounts belonging to taxation. That could be reserved for income tax, withholding tax certificates. The most important thing is when you make these accounts is that there are options. If you're talking about, for example, bank accounts, you will have options to set the account number, the account name, also a limit. This could be, for example, your overdraft. Let's say you have a bank with an overdraft of 2 million shillings, then you are able to put here minus 2 million, for example. If you have an opening balance in the beginning of the year or your book period, you can simply enter it here. In this case, we entered 500,000 shillings, but we could also change this to 450,000 shillings. You would enter then the balancing date. And click Save. You get a message, the opening balance has been adjusted. What other options do we have? Now let's have a look typically for example, a suspense account. If you make transactions and you do not know where to book them, so you know, for example, you've received money, but you do not know from which client, then the contra entry needs to go somewhere. We can, for example, use the suspense account for that. That means we debit the bank and we credit the suspense. But obviously later, when I do find out who this money was from, I need to be able to offset the invoice. Now, to be able to offset invoices or offset supplier invoices, you need to create accounts and select the offset balancing feature. By setting the offset balancing feature here, you will be able later to go to Payments, Invoice Offset, select the client, and offset, for example, the 5,000 shillings that is outstanding against, for example, any of the accounts, for example, suspense account here. I click it and I can click Offset. So the accounts that appear in the Offset section here are actually coming from the chart of accounts, and it will only show the accounts that were marked Offset Balancing. Similarwise for orders. I have a supplier. We're not going to pay the full amount. 30,000 shillings we're going to offset against, for example, against suspense. The other section where this is found is under account balancing. As you can see here, there's an offset account. Only the accounts in the chart of accounts marked as offset balancing will appear in the list. Let's go back again to the chart of accounts. What other options do we find in the chart of accounts? For example, if I go to expenditures, let's take, for example, bad debtors. Obviously, this is an account that is marked as offset balancing. You also see here that you can block accounts. Blocking means that from now on, you will not be able to transact using that account. However, previous transactions remain valid and will be able to be selected in the report. Other sections or other options are VAT control. What does mean VAT control? If you want to check if an account was correctly deducted VAT, then there is a section in what we call VAT reconciliation to show these accounts. As an example, if I know that electricity always attracts VAT, water for example not, but also garbage collection, we get always an invoice that should attract VAT, we want to ensure that the operators do not forget to deduct the VAT from the payable amount. Now, where does this then come back? So when this checkbox is set to true, it's selected, you'll be able to find in the section called VAT and receipt reconciliation under the entry check. When I say filter, you would find all the accounts that had transactions with that VAT control checkbox on. All these accounts will show here. So you can verify one by one, was the VAT correctly transacted or not. So this is just a filter facility. Let's go back again to the chart of accounts. What other options do we find? As I said, in liabilities, offset and balancing, we also have add and issue. Where are these applicable? For example, in stock issues. So if we go to, for example, damaged stock, if you want to have an account that you can utilize for writing off your stocks or adjusting your stocks, you can simply check the checks here, add and issue. Where do you find this back in the system? If, for example, we go to the inventory system, we go to item definitions and we add to stock manually, you will find here the account in question. So all the accounts from the chart of accounts that have, in this case, the add stock check on will appear in this list. Similarwise, if you go to issue from stock, all the accounts for manual adjustments only that come into this box also were in the chart of accounts marked as issue from stock. So if you want to let accounts appear here so that you can transact against it when making stock adjustments, you will have to mark them in the chart of accounts as add to stock or issue from stock or both. So to go back again, it's all about these two checkboxes so that they can be used for stock adjustments. Complementary is only there for the POS. This will be explained in the POS billing setup. We will get back to that. What else do we find in the chart of accounts? As we mentioned, assets, bank, cash accounts, some taxation like for example prepayments, but also you will find there your fixed assets and your inventory breakdown and some control accounts such as the generic stock account that the system provided by default and your debtors control account which is there provided by default. In company liabilities we find certainly the taxes such as VAT, corporate tax payable, withholding tax, but also other liabilities related to your payroll such as pay as you earn, NSSF, WCF and skills and development level. Furthermore, you can create your own long-term loans accounts, year-end receivable account as explained before as part of the setup, a suspense account and any other liability you may have. In income, we see again the default provided general income account and general sales account, but you could optionally make your own income accounts depending on the stocks that you sell, the sales items that you produce in your company and sell. Cost of sales is normally related to all the items that you sell. So when you sell Coca-Cola, then also you might have a cost of sales related to it. That falls under the category cost of sales. General expenditure for every company, it's different, but most of the companies will have a group called running expenditure, under which you will find accounts such as water, electricity, and or any other. For example, transport could be there. But also you will have there your payroll expenditure, your staff. That means you have pay-as-you-earn expenditures, NSSF, etc., etc. What else do we have here? Capital accounts. There you would find your retained profit, share capital, and there's also a balancing account. Other income and other expenditure are typically groups where you can put in income not directly related to the nature of your business, or expenditure not directly related to business activities. Depreciation is one of them, but it could also be, for example, income from rent or income from interest from the bank.